Good morning. With women's reproductive health and safety on the line across the United States, today I am proposing a new law here in the city of Los Angeles that would help prevent women from being misled by pregnancy centers. The Supreme Court, as we know, issued that radical decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, the Dobbs decision. It created profound peril for women across the United States. It opened the door to legislatures across the country to begin to outlaw abortion in state after state. That's going to result, according to a UCLA study, in thousands of women coming to California and thousands of women coming here to Los Angeles to seek to exercise some choice, to seek abortion services here in our city, joining women in Los Angeles or LA residents who are seeking to get access to basic pregnancy services. But there are, among providers of those services, some of them so-called crisis pregnancy centers, which operate here and attempt to prevent abortions. Some advertise in an effort to induce women who are thinking of terminating their pregnancies, who are in a very stressful physical and emotional moment in their lives, and frequently who are very low income, to come to their centers. And when they come to their centers, on the premise that those centers offer a wide array of reproductive services, including abortion services, instead, in some instances, those women are misled. They're misled because there aren't abortion services or abortion referrals available. Some centers don't offer the right tests. They offer non-diagnostic or non-medical ultrasounds that may not be sensitive enough to detect important features of a fetus, including abnormalities that might be performed by unqualified people. Information might be conveyed that isn't accurate to women. And that is going to prevent women from getting timely medical care that might save lives, that might avoid more severe consequences. Because some centers have been reported to pressure women not to terminate their pregnancies. Some centers have offered inaccurate information. There was an op-ed piece, an opinion piece in the Los Angeles Times by two doctors. And in that piece, one of the doctors indicated that she had a patient come to her who had gone to one of these centers. That patient had been shown someone else's ultrasound with a much more fully developed fetus in an effort to deter that patient from exercising her full reproductive options, including potentially terminating the pregnancy. The bottom line is, when it comes to reproductive choice, time matters. When it comes to reproductive choices, truth matters. Now, these centers, I want to be clear, are entitled to express their opinions, but they are not entitled to mislead women. They are not entitled to misrepresent the services they provide, putting women who come to those centers to severe consequences. And so today I'm announcing this new law. This new proposed law, which I have transmitted to the City Council already this morning, would prohibit any pregnancy services center from making an advertising statement that would lead a woman to believe that the center provides abortion care or emergency contraception or prenatal care or other pregnancy-related services when, in fact, the center does not. This ordinance could be enforced by my office, by the city attorney's office, or it could be enforced by a private consumer, by a woman who alleges that she's been misled. The remedies under this proposed new law would include penalties up to $10,000 per violation, an injunction and restitution if my office brings the action, If a private consumer, if a woman brings this action, those remedies would all be available, as would compensatory and punitive damages to the woman bringing the action. Now, this is an urgent matter, and we should treat it that way. I've transmitted this ordinance to the council. I'm hoping the council will act imminently. And we've included in the proposed draft what's called an urgency clause so that the law would take effect immediately upon its enactment. And I call on the City Council to take up this matter and to enact it with the urgency that it deserves. I want to say a couple other things. First, I am hopeful that the attention that this proposal generates will itself help to deter any misleading information, any misrepresentations in advertising, because no woman should suffer the consequences of such misrepresentations. And if there is a woman who believes that she has been victimized by misleading advertising regarding the services that a pregnancy center provides, please contact my office. I urge you to do that. Now, I'm going to say a few words in Spanish, and then I'm going to take questions, which will be transmitted by email to Mr. Wilcox, who will then convey them to me. Ahora en español. Después de la reciente decisión de la Corte Suprema que revocó Roe v. Wade, la salud reproductiva y la libertad de las mujeres están en peligro en todo el país. Hoy propongo una nueva ley para proteger a las mujeres de ser engañadas por los centros de embarazo en Los Ángeles. Los centros de crisis de embarazo pretenden ofrecer atención y servicios de salud reproductiva a las mujeres, pero en realidad es posible que no hacen todo lo que pretenden. En cambio, los centros intentan prevenir abortos. Los centros pueden tener sus propias opiniones, pero no se les puede permitir que engañen a sus pacientes. Las consecuencias de que una mujer sea engañada y demorada en tomar decisiones delicadas sobre atención médica, incluida la posibilidad de abortar, son graves. Cuando se trata de la elección productiva, el tiempo importa. La verdad importa. Hoy anunció una nueva propuesta de ley de la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Esa ley, que mi oficina está transmitiendo esta mañana, podría prohibir cualquier centro de servicios para el embarazo de hacer una declaración de publicidad engañoso que llevaría a una mujer a creer que el centro brinda servicios de aborto, anticoncepción de emergencia, atención prenatal o otros servicios relacionados con el embarazo, cuando en realidad no lo hace. Esta ley sería aplicada por mi oficina o por un consumidor privado. Rob, are there questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. The first question is from Christopher Weber of the Associated Press. Is this a preemptive law to address something you think may happen, or is this sort of thing happening now?
Thanks very much for the question. I mean, it's been widely reported in California and across the United States that there are centers that are providing misinformation, that are misrepresenting the services that they actually perform once a woman comes to those locations. Now, I can't say what we're looking at as we're talking today. I'm not going to talk about that. But I can say that I want our office and women here in Los Angeles to have every tool possible to combat these misrepresentations, to deter them from happening in the first place, and assure that women don't suffer adverse consequences because of them.
The next question is from Liz Chow of the Southern California News Group. She has three questions. The first is, how does this improve upon existing laws aimed at preventing people from being misled? The previous crackdown appeared to use existing laws like the Fact Act.
Okay, so Liz, you've asked, just that question is like three questions, so let's go through the pieces of it. So you alluded to the Fact Act. Let's be sure that everybody who's watching knows what we're talking about. So a few years ago, the state legislature adopted a law called the Fact Act that required crisis pregnancy centers to affirmatively state to their patients a bunch of information about abortion services, about Medi-Cal. We were, as far as I know, the only public law office in the state of California to enforce the Fact Act successfully, so that crisis pregnancy centers here in the Los Angeles area were accurately providing that affirmative information. Crisis pregnancy centers challenged the law. They took the law all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in a decision written by Justice Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court overturned the Fact Act. So that law, at this moment, is no longer operative in California. It required affirmative statements from crisis pregnancy centers. There's also in California a law or unfair competition law that precludes false advertising to be made to anybody. But the law that I propose today adds meaningful value. First, it substantially increases the penalties. Under the California's unfair competition law, the penalty is $2,500 per violation. Under the law we propose here, it will be up to $10,000 per violation. Also, our law would make it much easier for an individual consumer, for a woman, to bring an action on her own behalf. And again, the penalties that would be available in that situation would exceed those available under current law. Rob, next question.
Yes, again from Liz Chow. Have any council members indicated that they would schedule and or take this up?
So not yet specifically. I anticipate that the council, which has a great interest in this issue and has actively pursued ideas on this issue, will be taking up the matter soon, but I don't have any specific commitments from individual council members at this time. I'm very hopeful, however, the council will do that. I know where the heart of the council is on this issue, and it's on assuring that Los Angeles continues to be a safe haven for women who are seeking to exercise the full array of the reproductive choices, including to terminate a pregnancy.
And again from Liz Chow, is this ordinance based on any other similar laws?
So, Liz, there is a law that bears some similarity to this in San Francisco. That law was challenged and was upheld by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. This law goes beyond that law, but does bear some similarities because the San Francisco law does preclude misrepresentations by so-called crisis pregnancy centers.
From Stephen Gregory of KFI in Los Angeles, how many clinics are there in the city of LA that could be impacted by this law?
Well, I want to be clear that this law pertains to all pregnancy centers that provide services, of which there are a huge number in Los Angeles. It pertains with equal force to all such centers. Now, if you're asking how many crisis pregnancy centers there are in the city of Los Angeles, there are, we believe, at least 5. There could be more than that. The numbers change over time, but there certainly are so-called crisis pregnancy centers in Los Angeles and on the internet referral networks that are designed to direct people to those centers.
Again, from Steve Gregory, how will the new law be enforced?
So, Steve, as I tried to explain earlier, there are 2 ways that this law could be enforced. If it's enacted, the law would empower my office to enforce the law. And if my office enforces this ordinance, then there are 3 remedies that we could obtain. Up to $10,000 for every violation. an injunction preventing the activity from continuing, and restitution if that's appropriate for women who've been adversely affected. But again, another feature of this law is that it gives women in Los Angeles a private right of action to pursue the specific terms of this law. That's really important because we know that there may be women who won't be able to reach out, who won't have necessarily the opportunity to connect with our office, who nonetheless may want to pursue their own actions. We want them to be able to do that. And Steve, again, I want to underscore that this law does, at its heart, not only have as a purpose to allow us to vindicate important public rights, but it also is designed, ideally, to deter, because those who would otherwise be inclined to mislead or misrepresent, I hope now will think twice.
That concludes the questioning, Mr. City Attorney.
Well, thank you very much. I want to underscore what's at stake here as we conclude. With reproductive choice on the line across the United States and state after state outlawing abortion in those jurisdictions, there are going to be women, a UCLA study anticipates this, thousands of them, coming here to California where abortion is legal, where emergency contraception is available. And those women are going to come to Los Angeles. UCLA estimates about half the women coming to the state will come here to Los Angeles County. We need in Los Angeles to continue to be a safe haven for women who are simply seeking to exercise a freedom that a couple months ago they could exercise freely in their states, and now they are forbidden to do so. The Supreme Court took away a fundamental right and cast those women into great peril. Here in Los Angeles, we need to be an antidote to that, and that includes assuring that women who come here and women who are here already have access to accurate and complete information when it comes to the reproductive choices. So I propose this law that I hope the council will act on with urgency and put in place immediately that says that a pregnancy center cannot misrepresent or mislead when it comes to the array of services it purports to offer, because women who are induced to come to such centers under false pretenses could suffer severe consequences. They could lose time at a moment when emergency contraception could make a difference. They might have to otherwise undergo much more severe treatment. They might lose choices that they otherwise have. We want to put a stop to anyone suffering those kinds of consequences. This is particularly important in this national context, but it's important every day to women who are simply seeking to exercise this most intimate and fundamental choice. Thanks very much.